I spoke to one of India's finest fighter pilots, Veer Chakra, also the former Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral Arun Prakash, on this deal. Here's what he told me. Well, joining us now, Admiral Arun Prakash. Not only has he been a former Indian Navy chief, he's also been a distinguished fighter pilot. Thank you, sir, very much for being with us. In simple terms, what does the addition of these Rafale fighters mean for the Indian Navy?
Well, it's going to be a very welcome acquisition for the Navy, coming at the right time. It's going to add a huge kinetic punch to Indian Navy's striking power in many dimensions: air defense, anti-shipping strike, electronic warfare, you name it. The Rafale is a very fine and capable aircraft. It's a welcome addition.
Admiral Prakash, does this enable India to conduct in the near future cohesive carrier battle group operations?
Yes, certainly. India is already carrying out carrier battle group operations. I think they operated 2 aircraft carriers with the MiG-29K, with the Seahawk S-60 helicopters and so on. So it's already in progress. The Rafale is probably half a generation or a generation ahead of the MiG-29K. So it's going to add a punch to the fleet at sea.
What do you mean by adding punch to the fleet at sea?
Well, as I said, it's more modern than the MiG-29K. The MiG-29K was basically an adaptation of a land-based fighter, the MiG-29. And when we got it, it was virtually in a prototype state. And it took a few years to sort out all the bugs to achieve stable operations. But the Rafale comes about 10 years after the MiG-29. So its electronics, its data fusion, its weapons that it carries, it's going to be certainly a more capable aircraft than the MiG-29. So it will certainly add to the kinetic punch of the fleet at sea, to the aircraft carriers.
When we acquired the Vikramaditya and the Vikrant, we hadn't factored in the acquisition of the Rafale, or for that matter, any other fighter other than the MiG-29K, perhaps the Tejas. Does that make it, is that a factor when it comes to inducting and incorporating a new platform onto the existing ships?
Well, I think we need to go back a little into history. When we were negotiating for the Gorshkov, which later became the Vikramaditya, that was the late 1990s. At that point of time, firstly, there were no ski jump capable aircraft available other than the Sea Harrier, which we already had, and the Russians were just developing the MiG-29 and the Sukhoi 27. We went to the French, we sent a team to France to evaluate the Rafale, and they said, sorry, at this point of time, we cannot offer you the Rafale-M. And of course, those days, the political situation did not allow us to even contemplate acquiring, say, a F-18 or something. Of course, apart from the fact that the F-18 had not been proved off the ski jump. So our choices were limited. And at that point of time, when we started negotiating for the Vikramaditya, Gorshkov, the MiG-29 was more or less a Hobson's choice for us. So we had to take it. It's only subsequently that the Americans offered the F-18. They proved it off the ski jump. Then the French proved the Rafale off the ski jump. They came to India to go out to do it. And then we had these options available. And of course, very logically, we've gone for the Rafale option.
In the future, do you believe that a variant of the Tejas or a new jet called the TED-BF, or the twin-engine deck-based fighter, which India believes we have the capability of developing, can be an addition to the Rafale?
Yes, certainly. Not only can it be, but it must be. We produce our own aircraft. We designed and manufactured an aircraft carrier. We designed and produced the Tejas. Unfortunately, its capabilities are not good enough for it to be operationalized at sea. But we certainly hope that the TED-BF, the twin-engine deck-based fighter, will be evolved and go into service. But unfortunately, our decision-making is very slack, and I don't know where that project stands, but these kind of projects need to be pushed with a great deal of zeal and energy, and only then will they come to fruition. Otherwise, they'll stay on the drawing board.
Admiral Prakash, one of the reasons why we are having this discussion is not just to look at the technology or the capability, it's because we face evolving threats. Would you agree that it's just a matter of time before Chinese carrier battle groups deploy in the Indian Ocean region?
Yes, the fact that we've not seen a Chinese task force cruising around in our waters is because they lack air cover, integral air cover. But as soon as they have three aircraft, they've already got two, a third one is doing trials. But as soon as they can spare an aircraft carrier which will provide air cover, organic air cover to their forces, maritime forces, I have no doubt that they will put in an appearance in our waters. And that will, hold out a subtle kind of threat to us, and we need to be prepared for that.
The fact that they've got berthing facilities in Djibouti where they set up their first overseas base, it means that they've got logistic support of their own, not just in Pakistan, which is an ally. How does that potentially facilitate sustained Chinese carrier deployment in the Indian Ocean region, something which impacts, obviously, our operational preparedness?
Well, the PLA Navy, when it comes into our waters, we must remember is about 3,000 to 4,000 nautical miles away from their nearest base, which is in Hainan. So they have an extended logistic chain. So should the need arise, then they need a place, a port where they can put into and pick up some technical assistance or even fresh water and rations and so on and so forth. So the fact that they've got Djibouti must be a source of great reassurance to the PLA Navy. And then if they get Gwadar, that will be an added bonus for them. But in peacetime, should any warship want to put into any friendly port, there is no bar to that. They could put into Sri Lanka, they could put into Bangladesh, Myanmar, etc., without anybody raising objections. It's a normal thing. Our ships go all over the place and they enter friendly ports. So Djibouti, Gwadar, Hambantota, etc., if the Chinese insist on using them as their bases, well and good. But even otherwise, if an aircraft carrier or a carrier task force enters these waters, surely they will have a fleet support ship with them, which can supply fuel and water and rations and so on. And then, as you mentioned, they've got Djibouti to put into. So, all said and done, in a few years' time, we should expect the PLA Navy to make an appearance in these waters for whatever reason they consider it necessary.
Admiral Prakash, how would you respond to those who say that aircraft carriers are more vulnerable now than they've ever been? We've seen what's been happening in the Black Sea. We've seen the evolution and the remarkable evolution of maritime drones taking out frontline warships. An aircraft carrier is a national asset. It is phenomenally expensive. This being the case, how do we need to ensure that one of our most valuable naval assets is well protected, given the threats from drones that we now face?
Well, inherently, an aircraft carrier is possibly the most protected ship, most protected warship there is. It has its own fighter cover, it has radar coverage, it has anti-submarine helicopters. So it is, in fact, an aircraft carrier provides protection to the rest of the fleet. It's a wrong logic to think that it needs escorts. It does need escorts, but it's a mutual relationship. And I think we must focus on the recent events. The Houthis have been firing ballistic missiles. I don't know how capable those missiles are at American aircraft carriers. They've all been shot down. No US Navy carrier has been so far been affected by that. Secondly, Iran launched a few hundred missiles at Israel in the recent past. Most of those missiles were shot down not just by the Iron Dome, Israeli Iron Dome system, but by US Navy ships which were parked in the Eastern Mediterranean. Their anti-ballistic missile defense shot down most of the ballistic missiles fired by Iran. So this, this scare of aircraft carriers being overly susceptible to missile attacks is now, I think, been more or less proved otherwise. Firstly, aircraft carriers can defend themselves. Secondly, it's been demonstrated both in the case of the Red Sea Houthi affair and defense of Israel by the US Navy that ballistic missiles can be handled and tackled and shot down. So let's not frighten ourselves overly about the vulnerability of aircraft carriers. They have so much more to give than to say that are they safe and so on. That logic is not really valid anymore.
Admiral, a final question, and you've been a great endorser of what the aircraft carrier brings to the Indian Navy. As Navy Chief, you fought for that capability. You were only partly successful. That's because at the end of the day, there are, it is a very expensive national project. At this juncture, there are choices which India needs to make between, let's say, more submarines, further enhancing our nuclear submarine fleet, bringing in nuclear attack submarines, more destroyers, frigates, etc., which are very versatile platforms, or making a third aircraft carrier at home. Do you believe that it's an either-or situation, or both need to be developed?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's not an either-or situation. We have to decide as a nation what kind of, what kind of image we want to project. And for that, you have to sit down and write a national security strategy. I don't agree with all those people who say that, yes, we know what to do, there's no need for a strategy. Unless you articulate where you want to be in 10, 15, 20 years, you won't know how to get there. And once you articulate your national security strategy, then the armed forces will know how to shape themselves. I mean, look at the Indian Air Force today. They're in a sad state. They've been crying and screaming for, accretions to their force levels, but we don't know where to go. So I think first we must define what role India wants to play. We are net security provider. We are the most preferred security partner. The Prime Minister has promulgated, first he mentioned Sagar, now it has enhanced to Mahasagar. What do these slogans mean? They have to be translated into actions, into hardware, into budgets. And to say that there's not enough money to modernize the armed forces is not correct. There is plenty of money in the country. Plenty of it is wasted. And national security must have primacy over everything else. Because if you're seen as a weak, militarily weak nation, then you're going to get pushed around, which is already happening, I think. So this is a total fallacy that we can't afford military hardware or modernization. I think we need to get our priorities right and put our money where our mouths are.
All right, Admiral Arun Prakash, thank you very much, sir, for speaking to us, explaining the significance of this to-be acquisition. It's about to take place, the contract signing. Thank you very much indeed.